Okay, today's daf is Shabbat daf Pe Aleph. We're going to start right at the top of the Mishnah. Today's shiur is dedicated by Joni Brenner in honor of Rabbi Shuli Paso for introducing her to Daf Yomi. Okay, we're starting with the Mishnah. We're continuing. Again, the big question is, why is the Gemara spending so much time, or the Mishnah really, on every single item and what its use is, and therefore what one would be obligated if one walked out on Shabbat with this kind of item. Again, we have the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, where the rabbis generally take the average use, and Rabbi Yehuda will say even if it's, as long as it's used for something else, even if the shiur is, even if the object is less commonly used for this purpose, we're still going to forbid that lower amount. Okay, and again, we had the question yesterday, is this shiur really smaller? And then they say, yeah, it is in fact smaller. We're going to have the same exact question on our Mishnah here. Etzem kedei la'asot tarvat. Okay, so if you have bone, what is bone used for? Often they use it for a spoon. So the measurement to use for a spoon would be the measurement you'd be obligated in walking from a public or to private or private to public on Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kedei la'asot mimenu chaf, in order to make a key, or we'll see exactly what this is. We'll get to this soon. Now, a key, the assumption is a key is actually larger than a spoon. Again, you learn a little bit about the reality of those days, that the keys were very large, not like keys nowadays are pretty small. We'll get back to this. Zchuchit, glass, Kedei ligror bo rosh hakarkar. And there's an implement they would use for the weavers, that they would sharpen it. Okay, it was a kind of tool they would use to separate threads that got stuck to each other. So that would be the size of glass that you would use for this, to sharpen this utensil. So glass was used for sharpening, and therefore that's the shiur that you'd be chayav. In the Yerushalmi, they talk about there's different shiurim for glass. We're going to see in the Gemara also there's a different shiur. It seems that there also were different pieces of different types of glass. There's thinner glass, thicker glass, so some would be used for some and some would be used for other things. So therefore also we're going to have a difference when it comes to the glass about, you know, which type of glass would affect also what you're using it for. Even kedei lizrok ba'of. Okay, a rock, tzror o even, a pebble or a rock, or some people say a tzror is a part of a rock, a piece of a rock, in order to throw at a bird to chase the bird away. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, kedei lizrok bebehema, to actually throw on an animal, not a bird. Now, obviously, you would throw a different size rock at a bird than you would throw at an animal. An animal, you would need something bigger. The idea is you want to scare the animal away. Rashi says, why does Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov say, kedei lizrok bebehema? Because you're not going to throw a rock at a bird. Okay, now one thing is the bird's kind of, well, I don't know. Anyway, Rashi gives an explanation that it's because you can just make a loud noise and that'll scare the bird away. Whereas an animal, we all know that birds get scared away very easily. So therefore it must be for an animal, he says. Okay, the Gemara starts off again with the basic question, the Meimer de shiur de Rabbi Yehuda nafish. It sounds like the shiur of Rabbi Yehuda is larger than the rabbis. And normally Rabbi Yehuda is machmir and says a smaller shiur you're going to be obligated. Hakai malan de shiur de Rabbanan nafish, right? We already learned that the rabbis always take the bigger amount. Amar Ula chafei potachat. We're talking about the teeth of the key. Okay, right? The key has the long part, and then it has the part that goes into the door that actually unlocks. So those are called the teeth of the key. The Koran has a picture, if you have the Koran, about some ancient kind of key. You can look there or look up online, but it has basically these teeth at the bottom of it. So there, we're talking about the teeth. That's obviously smaller than a spoon. Okay, whereas the key itself would be larger, but the teeth would be smaller. Now we're going to talk about, since we already mentioned this, we're going to bring up a braita that comes up in topic of, that we always go back to, purity and impurity. Tano Rabbanan. Chafei potachat tehorim. Okay, the teeth of the key are pure. This is if they're separate. Before they're attached to the key, they're not really significantly, they're not usable for anything. It's just a tooth, right? It's nothing. So, right, it's like a little piece. Kava'an bepotachat tme'im. Once you put them into the key, then already they become tamei. Now you might say, normally we talk about kelim, they need to have a beit kibul, they need to accept something to be tamei. So Rashi gives two reasons. He says, number one, kli etzem ukikle matachot. He says, number one, they're like metal implements that even flat, they can be impure. Now, what's the problem though? We say before, if they're just teeth, they're not impure. But that's the difference between being usable and not usable. They have to be usable, and they're not usable if they're outside, but once they're put in their place, then already they have use and they're tameh. Tosfot actually disagrees with this. I'm not going to get into Tosfot, but just so you should know. The second thing he says is also, since they're attached to the key, and the key can accept tuma, therefore the teeth also become tameh, susceptible to impurity, because they're attached to something that is tameh. So when you're attached to something, you kind of get the laws of that item. Okay, so Rashi gives two reasons why he has to give the second reason. If he's convinced by the first, is a good question, but that's another question that we'll leave open. But now they're going to say like this. So we started with, when they're detached, they can't be susceptible to impurity because they're nothing yet. Once they become attached, they're already usable, they're susceptible to impurity. But if we go one stage farther, we're already going to lose the susceptibility to impurity. And what's that? Vishalgal, if it's part of a gate, okay, it's a lock for a gate, and these are the teeth for the lock. Even though you turn them into incredibly useful, which would be all the more so they'd be susceptible to impurities, which is what? You attach them to the door and you hammer them into the floor, then tehorin, or you hammer them into the door, okay? They already become no longer susceptible to impurity. Why is this? Once something is attached to the ground, now these are attached to the door, and the door is attached to the ground. I said a minute ago, it takes on the laws of what it's attached to. Well, now if it's attached to the ground and it's firmly in there, again, it's not really attached to the ground, but it's as if it's attached to the ground because it's attached to the door and the door is attached to the ground, then already it becomes like things that are attached to the ground, and anything attached to the ground is not susceptible to impurity. So at that point, it actually loses its susceptibility to impurity. Okay, that was a little tangent about the keys of those days. Now we're moving back to our Mishnah. Zchuchit kedei ligror. Tan, zchuchit, now they're going to bring a braita that says a bit of a different shiur for glass, even though it says zchuchit with a samach, it means the same thing. It means glass with a zayin. Kedei liftoa bashneini mim ke'achat. In order to cut, remember we had the melacha of hapotzea, it's when you cut two strings. So they would use the glass, since it's sharp, to cut the strings. So therefore, that would be the shiur that would be a usable amount. Now we're going back to this rock that we've used, or the stone, to throw at a bird. Rabbi Elazar Omer, right? So then we saw that it's in order to throw either at a bird or at an animal. Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, v'hu shamar geshek ba. It's not that you're just throwing it near the animal to make the animal flinch and then he'll run away. No, it has to be a rock big enough that it would actually touch the animal would feel the rock, and that would scare the animal off, which means it has to be a bigger rock than we would have thought. The kama shiuro, how big is this rock? And this is the big question that's going to lead us to, I'm going to get totally off on a tangent. Tanya, right, just asking what's the size of this rock. Tanya Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Omer mishkal 10 zuz. It's the weight of 10 zuzim. Okay, some people explain this is 425 grams. That's the weight of a rock that you need. That's pretty big rock. Not huge, but it's a rock. So now, Zunin al the Beit Midrasha. We're now going to hear about Zunin. He goes into the Beit Midrash. Amar lahu Rabotai. He walks in. He says, Rabotai, I have a big question. And this is going to get us off on this topic about bathroom behavior and what they did with rocks on Shabbat for wiping in the bathroom. Okay, in those days, they didn't have toilet paper, right? Obviously. And they would wipe with rocks. We've come across this before. They would do something to rocks, either sharpen them or somehow or smooth them. There's a bit of a debate about what avanim of course alot is, but they would prepare rocks for the bathroom. So now the question becomes, if you need rocks for the bathroom on Shabbat, can you carry them? Okay, so now what does this have to do with our sugya? So first of all, he asked, this is his question, and then we'll go into Rashi and see what Rashi says this sugya is talking about. Avanim shel beit hakisei shiuram bekama. What's the shiur for rocks that one uses in the bathroom? So now Rashi says, okay, number one, we're talking about if the rocks, you can use them in the bathroom, then again, if it connects to our topic, then what's he asking? He's asking, what size rock would one be obligated if they're rocks for use for the bathroom, for wiping? What's the size rocks that if you take it out to the Reshut HaRabim, right, to the public domain from your private house, or the reverse, would you be obligated in Shabbat for hotzah, for carrying? Because once it's something you would use in the bathroom, then it has significance and you'll be obligated on Shabbat. The other issue that always comes up with these rocks is the issue of muktzah. Generally, we say rocks are a very high level muktzah. They have no purpose whatsoever. But if these have purpose that we use them in the bathroom, then it already gives them purpose, right? Then we have a use for these rocks. So Rashi says, Inami, maybe this is actually not talking at all about hotzah, about carrying them out. What it's talking about is if you're in your chatzer where you're allowed to carry, or there's, let's say, an eruv, and you want to take your rocks outside, what shiur of rocks is allowed that we wouldn't call them muktzah? They're not set aside because they're usable for the bathroom. Okay, so again, either the sugya really connects because it's talking about what's the shiur that would be obligated. Once we establish the size one uses in the bathroom, we can know what's a typical size to be going outside, which makes a lot of sense. But it seems like a lot of this sugya really has to do with issues of muktzah, which is when am I allowed to carry rocks? Again, I just want to, it's always a little bit confusing where we draw the line between carrying, right, which is muktzah issues, versus carrying outside from public to private. Muktzah issues are obviously going to be a problem even in your house. You can't carry muktzah items in your house. So are we talking about maybe within a place where you actually are allowed to carry, what is considered usable for rocks for the bathroom and what is not? So what's the shiur? Amrulo kezayit ke'egozu chevetza. Okay, now Rashi explains that this isn't either or. Okay, kezayit, an olive bulb, ke'egoz, the size of a walnut, and kibetza, which is the size of an egg. So those are three sizes in order. Kezayit's the smallest, kibetza is the largest. Rashi explains that what we mean here is, okay, and he gets into a little graphic detail about when one would wipe, first you would wipe with the smaller, then with the middle, then with the large. Why is that? Well, when you're dirty, if you take a big one, then you're going to kind of smear the dirt around, and it's going to be worse. Okay, so therefore, you don't want to get yourself dirty. So first you start with the smaller rock, and then you start with the bigger rock. It's kind of like tips how to wipe yourself in the bathroom. So that's Rashi, who says that these are actually three particular rocks, that you use three different rocks of three different sizes. Amar lehu. So now he says, great question. Zunin says, wait a minute, I'm supposed to measure out my three rocks exactly what size? When I'm supposed to bring a measuring implement into the bathroom to see exactly which size rock I'm supposed to use when, and I'm starting, right? It seems ridiculous. I go to the bathroom, I don't start weighing and measuring exactly what size everything is. Like, you're getting way particular with your details here. Nimnu v'gamru, so they got up and they, you know, in the Beit Midrash that day, they took a vote and they decided, milo hayad, you take a handful of rocks, okay? You fill your hand, whatever goes in your hand, that's what you can bring into the bathroom. I'll just put it out there that some people explain this a little differently, but let's just assume it goes with, you know, one handful of rocks. Tanya, now we're going to have another Braita with different opinions here. Rabbi Yossi Omer Kezayit Ke'egozu Kibetza. He holds like they told Zunin in the Beit Midrash. Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi Yossi, but his son Omer, Mishum Avid, in the name of his father, Milo Hayad. Okay, so there was again a debate about even what Rabbi Yossi himself said. Tanu Rabbanan, another Braita with different opinions here. Shlosha avanim korzalot mutar lachnis lebeit hakisei. You can bring three rocks. This actually supports Rashi's interpretation that it's actually they would use all three. Bekama shiuran, but here there's a debate about what their shiur is. What size rocks? Rabbi Meir Omer ke'egoz, the size of a walnut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kebetza. Here they have a machloket. Are the three rocks the size of a walnut, or are the three rocks the size of an egg? Amar from Bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda. You might think this is a little strange. Kemachloket kan kach machloket be'etrog. He makes a comparison. He says, just like, this is a mnemonic really. If you want to remember who said what, in etrog, remember what they said here, and then you'll remember what they said there. There's a question about an etrog in Sukkah, about what's the minimum size for an etrog. How small can an etrog be? Rabbi Meir says the size of a walnut. Rabbi Yehuda says the size of an egg. So here we're comparing, now it's a very strange comparison. We're taking something that's a mitzvah and, you know, kind of, it doesn't have sanctity to it, but it's a mitzvah of the arba, meaning the etrog, and we're comparing it to what you use in the bathroom. It seems like a very odd comparison. We'll come back to this because soon we're going to talk about the wiping in the bathroom in the context of kavod habriot. And kavod habriot is, right, human dignity. And I was thinking that maybe there's a connection here, and what they're trying to say is, and maybe that's why this is a really long sugya all about bathroom behavior, is that we look at this as, we're discussing these graphic things about the bathroom and how you wipe and all that. Seems a little unpleasant. On the other hand, what they're saying is this is something that's really important. And it's just as important as an etrog, right? An etrog is a mitzvah, you have to do it properly, and hidur, and the etrog of all the meaning is the most beautiful. And going to the bathroom and wiping is a very important detail. And don't think it's disgusting and we don't want to discuss this, but it's very significant in how you do it and do it right. And the fact that we allow you on Shabbat to carry rocks, which we don't allow at all, is showing what a big deal it is and how important and how central they thought this was, right? Don't think that this is central to our lives. So I think that's maybe what's going on here. In any case, the Gemara has a problem with the comparison, not for the reasons I was saying, is, that's a mitzvah, this is going to the bathroom. But he says here, what's the problem? Hata matnitin hachabraita. Why are you saying, remember the machloket there based on the machloket here? Here it's just a braita that we quoted. But there it's a Mishnah about etrog. It's in an explicit Mishnah. Mishnah generally, right, people memorize Mishnayot in those days. They remember the Mishnah more so than they would remember some random braita. Therefore, they say it must be what he said was, Ela k'machloket be'etrog, kach machloket kan. It's the opposite. You'll remember the machloket here. If you remember what they said by etrog, which is easier to remember because it's a Mishnah, you can remember what their opinions are here. Amar Rav Yehuda, avalo et hapais. But you can't use pais to go to wipe yourself in the bathroom. So my pais, what is this? This means on Shabbat. What is pais? Amar Rabbi Seira, karshine bavliata, chunks of dirt from Babylonian dirt. Okay, what's the issue here? The issue is that when you use a clod of dirt, what's going to happen when you go to wipe yourself? It'll start falling apart. So it's not really the most usable thing in the bathroom. And because of that, right, a clump of dirt is usually muktzah on Shabbat. We're not going to allow you to carry that on Shabbat because it's muktzah. And since you don't normally use it in the bathroom, it's not very useful. Therefore, it's going to be muktzah. And you can't say, oh, well, this is something we use for the bathroom. Amarava. Asur l'mishamesh, we're going to get into more graphic detail here. Asur l'mishamesh b'tzror b'shabbat kederech shemishamesh b'chol. People who are constipated would use a rock to kind of get activity going there. Okay, so therefore, they say you can't do this on Shabbat. Okay, what's the issue with doing it on Shabbat? So again, debate among the Mefarshim, exactly among the commentaries. What's the problem here? Number one problem is maybe you'll cause hairs to pull out. You'll pull out hairs in your body. And therefore, it's a problem. Other people say you might smooth the rock out a little bit because you don't want to scratch yourself there if you're going to use it, and therefore you'll be chayav on ktisha, which is grinding, or theoretically maybe tikkun kli, you're fixing the rock, you're making an implement out of it. So therefore they don't allow this on Shabbat for whatever reason it might be. Matkefla marzutra listaken. He says, how could you not allow people to do this? It's very dangerous. If you have constipation and you don't deal with it, you can get very sick. So what do they answer? Kila achar yad. Well, you can do it, but you have to do it with a shiur, right? Some sort of different way of doing it so that, now especially if we're worried it's going to cause something, so that you're aware of the issues and you're more conscious about making sure not to grind it a little bit, or not to smooth it out, or not to pull out hairs. Okay, so therefore it's allowed, but it's not allowed in the normal way you would do it on a weekday. I'm a Rabbi Yanai. Now we want to know, if I want to go to the bathroom and I want to bring some rocks with me. Now here's a good thing, right? Normally you don't know exactly from the start how much toilet paper you're going to need. So here we're allowing you to carry rocks to the bathroom, but you don't exactly know how many rocks you're going to need. So how many rocks do we allow you to carry to the bathroom? So he says it depends whether you're going to a place that's normally used as a bathroom, or you're just going, remember in those days, they didn't really have set places for bathrooms. So are you just going to some random place and you're bringing the rocks there? So im yesh makom kavua lebeit hakiseh, if you have a place that's a standard place that you always use as a bathroom, milo hayad, you could take a handful. Im lav, now here there's two ways to read this sugya. Kehechrea meducha ktana shel besamim, that's one way of reading it. Like the average mortar that one would use to crush the spices, okay, which is like a small size, or you read it as keachrea. Keachrea means the average. What's the average? Well, we saw three sizes. We saw the beitza, egos, and kazayit. So they say like the average size, the egos. Okay, now if you read it that way, then there's a period there, and we finish with this. And now we move on. The next topic is this miducha ktana shel besamim, which is a small mortar where they would crush the spices, that apparently sometimes people used it also in the bathroom to wipe with. Okay, so depending on how you read the sugya, either they're just using it as a size comparison, or it's actually another implement that people use in the bathroom. And then it's going to affect how we read the continuation, because either the continuation is talking about rocks again, or the continuation is talking about this mortar that we're going to use. So again, there's not a huge difference either which way, but it's a bit of a different way of reading. Amar Rav Sheshet, im yesh aleha eid mutar. If, again, so let's assume we're talking about this mortar that you want to use to wipe yourself in the bathroom. If it has, I'm going to read the sugya this way, okay? If it has simanim on it, it has aid, testimony, that it was used once for use in the bathroom. Now, what's the issue? A meducha is something that's klisha melachto le'isur. We use this generally for forbidden purposes. You can't crush things on Shabbat. So or grind things. So if this wasn't used for a bathroom at all, then we're going to assume it's used for its general use. It's a klisha melachto le'isur. You can't use it for the bathroom. However, if it has on it some dirt that makes it clear that it was already used for the bathroom, now think about it. If you use this mortar in the bathroom, you're certainly not going to use it anymore for your spices. That's pretty disgusting. So therefore, it's an indicator that it was used for the bathroom. So now the Gemara is going to have a separate problem with this. Wait a minute. If it's dirty, you're going to use this in the bathroom, right? Who would use, right? We assume that we're talking about clean rocks. We're not assuming that they use dirty items in the bathroom. And not only that, but there's a braita that talks about how dangerous it is to do this. It could cause disease. So, meitive, right? This is good. Like sometimes these things come up and you think, what do you mean? And the Gemara, thank God, says, what are you talking about? Reusing something that was already used to wipe people in the bathroom? There's 10 things that cause hemorrhoids. The Elohim, ha'ochel alei kanim, ba'alei gfanim, v'lulavei gfanim, u'morigei behema b'lo melach. Okay, you eat let me look at the English a little bit easier. The leaves of, one second. Sorry, finding it. You eat here. Okay, the leaves of bulrushes, the grape leaves, the tendrils of the grapevines. Okay, the morigei behema are bumpy parts on the animal. They say that's either the tongue or the palate, or maybe even Rashi mentioned some other parts of an animal that weren't salted. Shidro shel dag, the backbone of a fish. The dag maliach shelo bishel kol tzorko, a salted fish that wasn't cooked, that wasn't fully cooked. Hashotesh shimrei yayin, the dregs of the wine. Hamekanech besid ubecharsit, if you wipe yourself with lime or with a earthenware shard. Bitzror shekinech bo chavero, this is it. With a rock that someone else used in the bathroom. You use a rock that someone else used in the bathroom, you're going to get very sick from that, right? You're going to transfer disease. Some people even say if you stay in the bathroom for too long, you sit there for too long, that will make you sick. Okay, by the way, I believe we learned this whole sugya in Brachot. Check, but yeah, in Brachot Nun Hey, the sugya appeared. So now they say, don't worry that the Braita says you can't use a rock that your friend used, and yet here we're talking about if it has, Rav Sheshet says, if it has an indicator on it that it was used, then you can use it for the bathroom, it's not muktzah. Well, lo kasha, habalach, habiyavesh. One is if it's still moist, then you can't use it, right? You'll get sick from it. Habiyavesh, if it already dried up, well, it's fine. B'ibaitema, I wouldn't recommend trying this, but Ibaitema, a second alternative, if it's dirty on both sides, then you can't use it. But if it's dirty on one side, then you can use the other side of it. V'ibaitema, third option, hadide hadachavre. Oh, we never said the first case when Rav Sheshet said it was dirty, but it could have been dirty from yourself, not from somebody else. That's not a problem. It was only, like the Braita said, shel chavero. Okay. Amalei Abaye, the Rav Yosef, yardu aleg shamim v'nishtashtishu mahu. What if it had an indicator that it was used already, and that would mean it's not muktzah and you can use it. Then came the rain, washed out, right? The Eastwind spider came the rain, washed it all away. Okay, it was clean now. And then, right, so now can you use it? Because now there's no longer the aid on it that Rav Sheshet was looking for. That's the sign. Amarle im hayari shumani kar mutal. It has to have still a little bit of a mark that it was used, and then you can use it. Otherwise, it's going to be muktzah. Now we're going to get into a different issue relating to the rocks. Can you carry them up to the roof? If you want to make on the roof, can you carry rocks up to the roof? Here the issue Rashi says is tircha yetera. You're not allowed to do something that's considered hard labor, and the assumption is you're carrying a bunch of rocks upstairs. That's maybe hard work. Are you allowed to do this if you need it in the bathroom? So Amar Lei, and here comes the line about kvod habriot, human dignity. Gadol kvod habriot shedochet lo taseh shevat Torah. Okay, human dignity is more important than anything else, and therefore, even though it's going to be a tircha yetera on Shabbat, you can carry it upstairs. Now, what's interesting here, it seems to say even d'oraita, but here it really talks about a d'Rabbanan. Tircha yetera is just a d'Rabbanan, but it seems, right, it's saying human dignity overrides that. So Meremer was sitting and teaching this. Ravina says, what do you mean human dignity overrides everything? I'm going to show you a case of human dignity it doesn't override. So why does it work here and not there? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Notel Adam Kisam Mishalefanav Lachtzot Bo Shinav. Rabbi Eliezer says if you have a problem on Shabbat, something stuck in between your teeth, you can take a twig that was, again, you have a little branch on the ground. It's usually muktzah. You don't designate those for anything. You can take it and you can actually use it to clean your teeth. Chachamim omrim lo yitol ela min evus shel behema. You can only use it from where the animals eat. Okay, they have already set aside kismim, these twigs, for purposes for the animal. You could take it from there because those were designated for use on Shabbat. But if you didn't designate it yourself for some other use, you can't use it. So what do you see here? Kvod habriot, right? It's always a little embarrassing when you find out later you had this whole conversation with someone and there was something big stuck in between your teeth, right? It's an issue of human dignity, right? You think, why did they tell me to take it out, right? Obviously, they're thinking maybe I'll embarrass you, right? So it's a question to embarrass someone to tell them, or is it more embarrassing that they're stuck with this thing in between their teeth and they didn't realize? So anyway, it's a human dignity issue, and therefore, you see here that they don't allow it. They don't allow you to pick up a twig to get out the thing between your teeth. Only if you have the, right, you have to go, only if you have it set aside from before, according to the rabbis. So first of all, one could answer very simply that there's a difference in level of human dignity. Having dirt stuck on you from the bathroom is obviously much more embarrassing than having stuff stuck in between your teeth. And maybe that's a possible answer, but the Gemara gives a different answer. Hachi hashta, why are you comparing these two? Hatam Adam Kove, and this is very interesting about human dignity. According to the Gemara, we're going to get to an interesting thing here about it, which is it's not always allowed mishum human dignity. Okay, it doesn't always override things. It depends on the scenario. Lo yitol hachiashta hatam Adam Kovei makom l'seuda hacha Adam Kovei makom lebeit hakisei. This goes back to how they went to the bathroom in those days. You generally didn't have a place that you always went to the bathroom. You would try to find wherever you could to go to the bathroom, wherever you were. When it comes to meals, people always ate their meals in set places. So because you ate your meal in a set place, your responsibility is before Shabbat, prepare dental floss, right? Make sure you have it set aside from before, put it designated for Shabbat. Therefore, if you didn't, it's your fault. You should have thought about it before. Whereas if you go to an outhouse and there's no rocks there, so we'll allow you, to carry the rocks to there, even though maybe it's work because of human dignity, because you had no way to do this before. And here it comes to say, human dignity only overrides if you didn't have a way to prepare from beforehand. But if you could prepare from beforehand, then you're not allowed to. This is, by the way, okay, apropos Yantif this week. There's certain things you're allowed to do on Yantif, but not if you could have done them before Yantif. You can't push everything off for Yantif and say, oh, I'll do it on Yantif because it's allowed to do on Yantif. So this is the same kind of idea here. Whereas, yes, it's allowed for human dignity, but only if you didn't have the option to prepare from beforehand. If you could have prepared, then it's your fault for not preparing, and we don't allow it. Amar Rafuna, another thing about bathroom. Asur li panot b'sedeh nir b'Shabbat. You can't go to the bathroom in a plowed field. Okay, and here we're talking about defecating specifically on Shabbat. My taima. So now they want to know why. We're going to have a few sugyas with the same structure. What's the reason? And they're going to suggest a few things and reject them. If it's because you're ruining, right? Let's say you go into your friend's field and you defecate there. So now you're kind of ruining the field that he plowed. Well, afilu b'chol nami, that's a problem, not relating to Shabbat. You can't go into your friend's field and mess up their nice plowed field that they just plowed. That's asur. Ela mishum asavim. The issue is because of the grass, okay? We're worried, Rashi says, "Machmat lach luchit hanir asabim olim al atzror u'kushu mitkaneach bo nitzlashim." We're worried that since it's freshly plowed, you're going to pick up rocks, and the rocks have grass on them. But while you're picking up the rocks, you're going to pull up grass from the ground. That's our concern. So then they say, if that's your reason, Hamar Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says you don't have to worry about this, because now we're going to talk about this scenario where you have grass that grows on rocks that aren't rooted in the ground. Okay, so you have this grass. Again, it grows on a rock without being rooted. So Rish Lakish says, "Shur shalubo asavim mutar lekaneach ba, vatolesh mimenu b'Shabbat chayav chatat." You're allowed to take a rock from the ground that has grass on it. If the grass isn't attached to the ground, the grass just grew on the leaf. I guess it's like a mossy type thing that grows on a rock, right? When it's wet, it creates this moss on it. It's not actually grass, right, that's attached to the ground, but it is something that's growing on the rock. So you can actually use this. So therefore, he's saying that wouldn't be our issue. If our issue is that we're worried you're going to take the rock, which has this moss growing on it, and lift it up from the ground, and theoretically that's like tolesh, like pulling something out of the ground, that's not an issue, because Rish Lakish says you're allowed to do that. What's the only issue? You can't take the moss off of the rock, because hatolesh mimenu b'Shabbat chayav chatat. But you can't actually pick the rock up off the ground. You're not considered like you're detaching this greenery from the ground, which we'll talk about in a few more minutes. So therefore, what's this case of not being allowed to go to the bathroom in a field that's plowed? Because so far we've shown either it's because of you're ruining the friend's field, then it's usher even during the week, or you're picking up this rock, which is not usher at all, even on Shabbat. Maybe you're standing in this higher place. You might see that there's a hole in the ground. You'll take a clod of earth. You'll forget it's Shabbat while you're there, and you'll throw this clod of earth, and you'll fill in a hole, and then you'll be mechayev according to what Rabbah said. Amar Rabbah, haytalo guma v'timima. If you had a hole, and we saw this before, and you fill it in, babayit, if it's in your house, chayav mishum boneh, because you're building your house, you're flattening out the ground, and b'sadeh chayav mishum choresh. You're obligated because it's like plowing. Okay, gufa. Now we're going to get into what Rish Lakish says. Amar Rish Lakish, chur shalu bo asavim mutar lekaneach ba, vatolesh mimenu b'Shabbat chayav chatat. Okay, that's exactly what he said. Now we're going to say something they learned from this. Amar Pape, shma mina midrish Lakish, hai parpisa shari l'tiltule. Okay, what's a parpisa? Parpisa is what we call, in the words of the Gemara, an atzitz nakuv. It's a perforated plant. It means that the plant is in something, but there's holes in it, which means that potentially the roots could end up going into the ground. There's tons of halachot about this. Is it forbidden in Shemitah? Can you water it on Shabbat? All sorts of things about this. So he says, it seems like this is allowed. You're allowed to pick it up and carry it on Shabbat, because it's just like the rock that has the moss growing on it. It's not actually attached to the ground. Maybe it could become attached to the ground, just like the atzis nakuf could become attached to the ground, but it's not forbidden to pick it up. So therefore, it must be not forbidden to pick up this plant. Rav Kahana doesn't really like this. Matkefla Rav Kahana, imamru litzorech, yamru shelo litzorech. What do you mean? We allow this rock only because you have to go to the bathroom. And we talked about this whole issue of human dignity. That's why we allow it. It's not allowed under normal circumstances, and therefore the plant isn't allowed. Amar Abaye, now he's going to explain about this plant. Parpisa ho il va'ate liyadam lema b'milta. If already we're on the top of this plant, I'm going to tell you a bunch of things about it. Hayam unacha gabe karka. If it was sitting on the ground, v'hinicha gabe yetedot, and then you lifted it up and you put it higher up, okay, off the ground. B'chayv mishum tolesh. This is considered tolesh because what's right? Basically, tolesh is you're preventing it from taking root. So here, right, theoretically, it could theoretically take root down the road, and therefore you're preventing it. You're chayv mishum tolesh. Hayamunach gabe yetedot v'hinicha gabe akarka. If it was higher up and then you put it on the ground, chayav mishum notea. You're obligated for planting because theoretically this could take root over time. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So by the way, there's a machloket Rashi and the Rambam here. This very interesting machloket. Are you chayav here mid'Rabbanan only? Rashi says. The Rambam thinks you're actually chayav mid'Oraita for doing this. Okay, Torah law, you're actually doing it. And what they explain is that when you plant, nothing happens immediately. It only happens over time. So same thing here. When you do this, you're doing something that over the long term might take root. It's the same thing as planting, right? Even when you plant, sometimes it doesn't even ever grow. So theoretically, you could say, why would I be obligated in planting? Maybe nothing will grow from it. So it's the same thing. It happens even though you're not sure something's going to grow. And therefore, this is actually really the same as planting. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Asur l'kaneach b'cheres b'Shabbat. We're going to have the same structure as before. Why can't you do this on Shabbat? So you can't wipe yourself with an earthenware shard on Shabbat. So my time. If it's because it's dangerous, because you might cut yourself, and that's dangerous. Again, we seem to be using things, talking about them in a halachic context, which are really health-related issues, which often comes up in the Gemara, because the Gemara, again, we've seen this many times, they view themselves as the authorities on all sorts of things, including medical issues, which we saw about the whole Braita about the hemorrhoids before. So even afilu b'chol nami, but then it should be a problem on Shabbat. It should be a problem all week long. Why specifically Shabbat? Ela mishum kshafim. Here's an interesting one. Well, maybe someone could put a spell on you if you do the following thing. You're susceptible to spells by doing this, which we're going to get to soon. Afilu b'chol nami. Even on weekdays, you should be allowed to do this because someone could bring a spell on you. The ela mishum asharani mean if it's because you might cause hair to be pulled out. Davar she'eino mitkaven. Well, you're not intending to pull out hairs. You're intending to wipe. That's what we call davar she'eino mitkaven, and it should be allowed. So we're stuck with, why did Rabbi Yochanan say asur l'kaneach b'cheres b'Shabbat? So Rav Natan bar Oshaya, Amar Lahu Rav Natan bar Oshaya, Gavar Rabba Amar Milta. This was a great person who said this. Rabbi Yochanan made this statement. Nema batama. I've got to give a reason. He must have had a reason for what he said. So here's what he explains. Lo mebaya dechol asur. Obviously, it's asur on a regular day for the reasons we said, right? Probably because it's dangerous. You could cut yourself, and we don't want you getting yourself into a situation like that, right? We don't want you to put your life in, not your life in danger, but your health. We don't want you to sacrifice your health. So therefore, they told, don't use this during the week. Here's an interesting, opposite approach. Ela b'Shabbat, but you might have thought specifically, what have you thought? Normally, what do we say? Rocks are highly muktzah. Remember, we talked about that before? An earthenware shard is less muktzah. Why is it less muktzah? Because it was a utensil, and an earthenware shard could actually be used to cover a pot or cover something, and therefore, you might have thought that better to use an earthenware shard on Shabbat, even though maybe it's potentially dangerous for you, but better to use that because it's less muktzah than a rock. So therefore, kamash malan, right, ikatoret kli alav, because it's called a kli, it's a utensil, and a rock is not called a utensil at all. It's not used for anything. Therefore, shapradami, maybe on Shabbat, you can't use it on a weekday, but maybe you would specifically use an earthenware shard on Shabbat. Kamash malan, that obviously we don't want you to endanger your life, even though from laws of muktzah, you might be better off using that. Again, the human dignity overrides, and it's not, again, kvod habriot here is different of human dignity. There was human dignity. You walk around with feces on your body. Here we're talking about that you might cause yourself to get hemorrhoids or something like that. We don't want you to cut yourself, and therefore we allow you even to use rocks, and that's what he's coming to tell us, Rabbi Yochanan, that you can't use this earthenware shard. It's not better than rocks. Rava, though, goes back to what we said before. We're worried. Rabbi Yochanan must have been worried that you're going to pull out hairs. The kasha, right, while you're wiping with the shard is very sharp, and it might cut hairs off. And that's chayav mishum gozes. Okay, gozes is shearing the sheep. Therefore, pulling out hairs of your body would be from that. But now we have a problem. Kasha led Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan contradicts himself because pulling out hairs is a davar she'eino mitkaven. You're not intending to do that. And what does Rabbi Yochanan hold about that? Let's see. If you say that, according to Rabbi, it would be a davar she'eino mitkaven. You're intending to wipe. You're not intending to pull out hairs. You pull out hairs anyway. Well, that's davar she'eino mitkaven, and Rabbi Yochanan is saying it's forbidden. But doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say elsewhere? Halacha kistam Mishnah. We pass in like a Mishnah that doesn't have a name, meaning there's no machloket and it's not said in anybody's name. Rabbi Yochanan, we have a principle, and this question comes up all the time on statements of Rabbi Yochanan. But doesn't he hold like stam Mishnah? And the stam Mishnah says, "V'tznan nazir chofef u'mefaspes avalo soreh." Nazir can shampoo and rub it in, but he can't comb his hair. So what do you see? If you can shampoo, you might pull out hairs, and he allows it. Right? And this is the Stam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan holds like Stam Mishnah. So how can Rabbi Yochanan say this? So therefore, Elam Chubarta Kedor Natan Bar Shai. So they reject Rava's answer. They say it can't be that Rabbi Yochanan is worried about pulling out hairs. And we're left with Rav Natan Bar Shai, who explained it, that his whole chiddush was you might have thought, even though you can't use it during the week, maybe on Shabbat it's better than rocks. Kamash Malan, it's not. Okay, last part for today, we're going to learn about what are the kshafim, my kshafim, what kind of witchcraft are we worried about is going to happen with someone who wipes with an earthenware shard. So, Kihad Rav Chisda Rav Huna Habu Ka'azli Ba'arba. We're going to have a story, okay? The following two people were in a boat. Amr Lehu Ahi Matronita, there was a Matronita, that's a Roman noblewoman. Otvan Bahadaichu, she wanted to sit next to them. Below Otvua, they wouldn't let her. This sounds like an El Al plane, right? Someone wanted to sit next to her, right? They wouldn't let the women sit next to them. Amra, just dawned on me that maybe this is their source for people who want women to move in the airplane. Amra iha milta asar tel arba. She said some incantation and she stopped the boat. Amru inhu, they said milta. They said something else. They made their own incantation. Sharyua, and the boat started to go. Okay, they basically got rid of her sorcery that she tried to do on them. Amra lehu, she said to them, my avad lechu, you're leaving me no choice. I'm not going to be successful with you. Why? You must not wipe yourself with earthenware shards, because if you did, my witchcraft would have worked. Okay, and then she knew that the witchcraft only works if you do one of the following things, and they must not have done the following things, which means they weren't susceptible to the witchcraft. Okay, interesting. We talked about susceptibility to Tumah today. Here we're going to end with susceptibility to witchcraft. Now we're going to learn what things make you susceptible. Again, this could be, like we've mentioned before, about things that one does that might be a little dangerous. That leaves open room for evil spirits, other things, right? It's again the way the rabbis, it's the way they talked in those days. It doesn't necessarily mean there's really something to witchcraft, although it does seem like they really did believe there was something to witchcraft here. So one is, that's our case. You don't kill lice bugs on your clothing. That's also considered something that would bring witchcraft. You don't take the vegetables straight from the bundle of the gardener or the person working in the field, tied it up. You don't take it straight from there and eat it, right? If you did it from the pile and you just, and it's bundled up and you pull it out of there, that makes you susceptible to witchcraft. Now, not all these things seem dangerous. The one about the chaspa, about the earthenware shard seems dangerous. Maybe killing lice bugs on your clothes could cause you maybe to get bitten by them. I don't know. I don't know if kinim really bit. The vegetables, I was thinking only maybe they need to be washed. You pull it out of there and you don't, like you think about someone who eats the vegetables straight from the fruit store and doesn't wash them. Maybe that's the issue of the danger. Or maybe it's just, again, things that we don't really understand about witchcraft. And, this is what at least she believed was the case. And that ends our topic for today. Again, just to give some perspective on the daf, because it's a bit of an odd daf with all the stuff about the bathroom. Again, I think that these were things that we talked about this in Brachot that were so central to their lives. The bathroom came up really a lot in Brachot. And they didn't want you to think that this is mundane and this isn't important, but you need to talk about it and you need to know how to do things right so that you don't end up with health issues. And they saw this as a very important thing. And again, I go back to that comparison with the etrog, which I think is central. It's saying this is really important. Don't minimize it. It's very important, and make sure you do things correctly. Okay, and for today.